Well, good morning, Rose. How are you?
I am good morning, Professor Gura. I am very excited today to be booked because today is a day we are going to talk about some of my passions which are behind me, but they're not just set up behind me. Being booked into no cost, disruptive, shifting, joyous, intelligent pursuit each day of our lives for free, anytime, anywhere, and definitely in our classroom is one of my passions. So I'm very excited about today's conversation.
Well, I always enjoy it when you come and join me in our virtual teachers lounge for a conversation about education, often things people don't really want to say or drawing conclusions that may be a little inconvenient and irreverent. So it goes. Um, Let me do a quick intro. So my name is Professor Mark Gura. I teach education courses, graduate level for Touro University online. I was a classroom teacher in New York City for a couple of decades, moving on to become a director of curriculum and instruction in the area of STEM for the entire city. And I do this kind of thing in my retirement. And you, Dr. Rose, were also a classroom teacher for a good long while in New York City, moving on to become a curriculum and instruction specialist. And currently, you are a powerful instructional coach in service. And anyone who's interested, I'll put some links to our full bio. And having said that, let's see if I can share the notes for today. Okay, good. Here we are. So, you're booked, and I've titled this Revive Literacy Learning with the Joy of High Interest Books. And boy, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And in brief, uh, to our colleagues out there, please subscribe to this channel. It'll encourage us and help us get.
And encourage
Yeah,
yourselves to
encourage the
feel
fields.
happier, to feel in charge. Encourage yourselves as well. That's what this is about. It's about conversation, and it's about that conversation catapulting, exciting, captivating, and getting you to join our charge and crusade and to run it. And now we
Well
can
said.
go
Right.
to this.
Yeah, so right. So please subscribe, give us a like, ask a question in the comments, whatever. That'll help. So this past week, there's been a lot of education news, and this was front and center because the nation's report card came out, and here's I think this is from Ed Week or some similar publication. Powerful headline: Student test scores keep falling. What's really to blame? The NAEP performance continues to decline. We must search for new explanations and solutions. Hmm, I really can't accept that fully the way it's presented. Certainly the scores are down a little bit more. And so I'm asking impertinently, is fixing this really rocket science? And what's really to blame? And what came to my mind is this quote from Shakespeare: "The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars or in the pandemic schooling or cell phones or TikToks, but in it's really in the way we've conceived what education is. And further, I'm framing this
All
as
right, Mark,
so
may I now weigh in?
jump
May
right
I
in.
weigh in now, Mark?
Yeah, please go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm going to not only jump, I'm going to leap right in. As I was looking at this, and you and I have both been exchanging, as we said, that's the root of this. We've both been exchanging these different things that come in our inbox, and this is all over the place. I suddenly called to mind a poem, a poem from the 19th century. And I think most of our listeners know it, even though they're 21st century. It's the wise men who are looking at the elephant, and they're all blind. And so, therefore, they don't see the whole elephant in totality, but one feels the trunk, and he reports on that. One feels the ears, one feels the body, and they all report and they're all sort of accurate, but they're not getting the sense of the elephant. And I think that this whole problem where we're working on where next one is going to show the 5 pillars of literacy, and I'm not discounting the science of reading. Yes, those are the pillars: phonemes, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension. But we're forgetting the big picture of reading, of excitement, of learning to learn, of engaging. We're forgetting all of that as we're looking at this little thing, the test. It's as though I am seated geographically across the street, of course, from my window, Isham Park. And if instead of looking out at the large trees in the park and looking at the park now and all the fall foliage, etc., if I took a periscope and looked at and sharpened the gaze and looked at something on the gutter and enlarged it a little pebble, this is what's being done. And somehow I never thought much of this poem which is by John Godfrey Sachs, but somehow now it highlighted for me, and kids always remember it. And that, by the way, comes from it's actually a folk tale from India that goes way back in time, but lots of people have written about it. But that's what we're doing. These test scores, that has nothing to do if kids were actually learning something, and the skills would come. And the reading, which we're going to talk about across content, is the key thing. But meanwhile, we're focused on the little minutiae and forgetting the forest and the trees for looking at some pebble.
Yeah, well put. By the way, I used the illustration for those 6 blind men approaching the elephant in my classes. And so I agree, obviously, with what you're saying. I'm going to call it toxic tunnel vision. There's nothing wrong with testing per se, but it's become if the field of public schooling is the dog, testing has become the tail that wags the dog. We've got it backwards. Okay, so what I'm going to bring up now is an ad I saw on Facebook. By the way, as a brief aside, Facebook is a powerhouse for the profession of teaching. Not only is there the little gossipy social media stuff, but there are a lot of Facebook groups, which are really professional learning networks, English teachers, math teachers, how to use AI, all kinds of stuff. And there are a lot of ads there from major publishers and providers of resources. Here's one that caught my attention, one of many. And this one says the research is clear about what it takes to become confident, proficient readers. Direct, explicit, and systemic instruction across the 5 core areas of reading. And so they have this illustration of the 5 pillars, and you tick them off. I'll repeat it. There's phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension. Our language arts teachers and their students, in large part, are kind of dying on that vine because there's no fruit there. There's a lot more to this than assessment, instruction, and practice. These these functions of reading, how did I put it here? Something's missing. And I'm sure you agree with that, Rose. I'll call it the crucial keystone element, the what the author wrote the book for in the first place element. Books are art. This is something we discuss quite a bit. The sixth pillar of literacy, the one that's missing here, the one that truly matters, is getting what the author intended, not just being able to functionally read the book, but to get its meaning, affect, and the inspiration it offers. And we have kind of turned our back on this, have we not, Rose?
Okay. All right, Mark. So this is what I'd like to say. I would like to take this because that's what I do in real life. And I think we're both being very real. The term, is conversational. We're getting real here as teachers with our audience who are hopefully teachers and administrators, everyone who has stakeholder in learning. When you look at the totality of something, when you fall in love with someone, you see someone, whether it's whatever kind of relation, but there's immediate like, love, connection, simpatico. Yes, scientifically, you can break it down. The pheromones are going, that this happens, that's happening in your body. But no, it's love first. And then maybe you break it and you go with that emotion. And here too, we're breaking it down. Well, when I'm reading this book, and this is going to be our focus today, J versus K, a book that just came out by Kwame Alexander and Jerry Craft, or Jerry Craft and Kwame Alexander, because the rivalry, we can see it in a moment. The reading is about reading a great book and pushing it. Although we're both readers, one thing that neither Mark nor I mention in our professional intro is we're both lifelong readers from our different perspectives. And when we met, we noticed that. And I noticed that about various people I connect with, people who have lists of books and who we sharing. And I pushed at him this book, which is a grade 5 through 7 graphic novel, just came out. Graphic novel, meaning that it's Jerry Craft, his great pictures and storytelling, and Kwame Alexander, his great words and stories in words. When it came out, this isn't the sort of thing that Professor Gura normally reads, not that because he's not a middle school literacy person. He's a, grad ed professor, thinker about the system. But I said to him, "You must read this." And he said, I said, "Well, yes, you must read this and you'll see why." And this goes beyond grade. So don't get tuned out now and go, "Oh, I don't teach grade 5 through 7, so this isn't for me." This is about reading. This is about learning. This is about the elephant. This is about the Isham Park across the street from me and its fall foliage. Not, and again, I bow to the science of reading. I bow to the science of what it is to fall in love and what happens neurologically, etc. But this is what it's about. So J versus K. Now let's look at this. Let's just look at the cover. And thank you, Professor Gura, as he was preparing the notes for this. He said, "Oh, and I'm going to send you some pages from the book so that we can discuss it." And I said, "Oh, and I was going to take some pictures and send you pages." So here we have the cover. Immediately, you look at the cover, no matter who you are, and what do you see in the cover without even looking at the title? Uh, Professor Gora, why don't you? Because you actually were the reader we had to draw in, since this isn't your grade, this
Well,
isn't the grad ed course. What do you see?
well, I got, as an aside, I got to point out that um, there is no one I know who I consider to be more expert and passionate, crazy about children's literature and young adult books. And yeah, you kept after me because you often share books with me, but this one clearly you this blew your mind, all right? And so I got
What do you see?
I
What do you see? Play now. I don't know if Professor
I
Gura wants
see
to hear. What do you
two
see?
I see two kids, two kind of very contemporary cool kids, and they're in a rivalry. And I'm sure that
What do you notice, Mark Gura, as you look at this? What do you notice about this book that's a little unusual for a cover? After all, it was put out by a big company. These are two major authors. What do you notice that's a little unusual in the cover design, which you might see in school or you might see when something isn't complete yet? What do you notice?
well, I don't know if I noticed what you want me to, but I'll say one.
Doesn't
This
matter. I want you to talk
this
about it.
book is about a rivalry, and so and it's from these two gentlemen who are living the part of kids,
How
and
do you
so
know that
it's
they're rivals?
I'm pointing to it now. It starts out saying Kwame Alexander and Jerry Kraft, and Jerry has crossed out because they're in a rivalry. They crossed out Kwame's name, and then Kwame put his name back in.
Okay, so right away, we get, do you get a sense that this is something finished that you would turn into a teacher or to a publisher to get printed out or to go up on as an
No,
ebook?
this is authentically happening. You know, this
Okay.
is right.
This
And
is authentically happening. And even looking at this, by the way, if I hadn't adored Jerry Craft and actually Kwame, no offense, Jerry, Kwame is my all-time favorite. I also like Jerry, but if I hadn't, I would have been drawn to the cover. Now, let's look further at it. The cover, the publisher, of course, is selling us, letting us know, the teachers and the other publishers are going to sell this thing, that this is two Newbery Medal Award winning authors, best selling. But let's look over here. The characters themselves, what's unusual? We have the title J versus K, so we know it's a battle. But what's unusual over here about the cover itself? Besides the title, what does it have on the right side, Dr. Gora?
well, it's kind of like foreshadowing. Uh, they're telling us, get ready for the biggest rivalry the world has ever seen. And not only that, it's handwritten on a sheet of notebook paper that's been torn from some kid's notebook. And what does this guy do? That's Jerry. He draws. And what does this guy do? He writes. And boy, now there's a possible rivalry. What's more powerful, uh, an illustrated narrative or a text-driven narrative? And that's part of the big rivalry in the book. Hope I got that right.
Well, it doesn't matter, by the way, whether you got that right or not, because we're talking about it, because the book has gotten us talking. So there's the story that's going on, and then there's we, the readers or potential readers, because yes, we've actually been doing visual reading literacy, which, by the way, visual reading pictures is part of literacy. And there's another point. As an English teacher, which Dr. Gura has missed out in his professional life, as an English teacher, you have kids coming in who are artists, who doodle, who are artists, or who hate reading. And in fact, the Jerry character in this doesn't like reading at all. He likes the librarian in there, and there's a reason for that. He likes the librarian in the school, but he doesn't like reading because he's an artist. And I have kids, and throughout my career, I've had kids who, because I make them feel comfortable, come right out and tell me that they don't like my subject. They're going to go into, since they're middle school, they already know they're going to be a programmer, they're going to be the next Bill Gates. They're going to be the next. They're going to be the next big rap star, pop star. But they're not going into. They hate reading. And I have two members of my family, my own beloved brother and my husband, who both hated reading. My husband because he was an artist, and my brother because he was into a businessman. And yet, I will tell you, they're both readers, although they don't want to see it that way. Both spend time reading text, deciphering, decoding, etc. Now, once you see the picture over on the left side of Dear Jerry and his art, suddenly the kid who hates art, who hates reading, is validated because, hey, this is going to be about a book with a kid who feels exactly the same way that I feel about this class. But gee, I don't know, this kid he's kind of published, the same as I will say that there's certain other books I'm not crazy about, The Whim and other graphic, but the point is they validate, they draw in, and reading is everyone. Reading is all talents. Okay, let's move forward. So
So
we've been in the conversation, there's a dynamic, we know this isn't finished, and we know, hey, a rivalry, by the way, has an audience. You're rivaling not only to be a rival with somebody, but you're rivaling to get the audience away from somebody else or to have an audience watch you. Go
yeah,
ahead.
before we move, I'm just going to point out, not only do I love these illustrations and the characters, and you know what? They're appealing characters. They're street kids, but they're very appealing. But I love the way this kind of models how art or the visual and text can meld to become great, great literacy. Okay, enough from me. And
That and they call that graphic novels. I should have a soundtrack in the back of here. They call that graphic novels. But in a sense, okay, we'll go on to this.
yeah,
Let's
so I
pause
should
here. But
explain
in
that.
in a sense, even a book that does not have pictures and that's not a graphic novel, it's the type that my students hate because no pictures except for the cover. That's a book where you become the artist, even if you're Rose Reissman and you can't draw well, but you're making pictures in your head as a reader, as a reader. Now, I love this. Why should teachers use this book? Asked Dr. Gura. Well, double stink eye. I look at the eye contact there.
I got to point
How
out that
many kids roll their eyes? I got into trouble at a school. I've rolled my eyes at people my entire life. I don't have a political personality. How many times have you seen this exchange between kids? This type of thing. How many teachers, how many dynamics are between you and your own friends? Okay, Dr. Gora.
too many, but I also want to point out uh, over on the left, there's a page of text. I don't want anyone to think that this book is weighted towards the visual. It's I don't know, it's 50-50 or more, a little bit more text than illustration, but it's very much what we were saying. It's a mixture of a lot of text narrative and art narrative. And
All right, let me just speak to that. That's called craft, how the book is put together, not arts and crafts, although in a sense, the writer's craft. And at one point, Kwame gives a fake list to poor Jerry of how to write because Jerry has to do some writing. This is all framed as part of the school, which is a model for schools, by the way. It has a storytelling contest, and that's what this rivalry is focused on because quickly Kwame realizes that with his art, with his art, Jerry over there might win the storytelling contest by just telling a story using pictures. And Jerry is afraid that Kwame over there, they both have groups of kids in a school, by the way, and the whole school's excited about the art, the storytelling contest. So they both figure that the kids, their kids' audience are going to go for them. The book is craft constructed with first comes Kwame, let's say, and he says, "This is my story." And that guy, Jerry, he's got all the pictures, but I'm the greatest one. And they're both very boastful, which I, of course, like because I am not a person who believes in humility, although that's supposed to be a value. I've never felt that
Never,
way.
you are
Uh,
not shy and retiring.
no, neither are you, Dr. Gura. Okay, so there's half text, which is Kwame telling the story and downplaying the words. And then, so it shifts perspectives. That's very important. So while you're reading this fun book, the reader is getting, a verbal, written perspective from Kwame with lots of big vocabulary words. And then there's a parenthesis. This is a big vocabulary word. I looked it up. And then you get Jerry over there with lots of pictures and lots of different visuals and how you do it and all of that. And then you get Kwame. So it's a back and forth dialogue shifting, and it is deliberately half-half. It's like they're battling with each other, but they're not battling with fists, but they're battling with the passion of each of their talents. And it is together as a book or a craft that they create this high impact. After I finished reading this thing, I wanted to start again. And it's not that I don't have any books to read or I have nothing to do in my life. I have a very scheduled life, but it's that it was so exciting and there was so much in it. And I saw it was Mozartian, but seemed simple and accessible and delightful. Notice, remember, constructive classroom disruptions are delightful. This book is bringing joy and intellectual stuff and curiosity and worthwhile. Go
And
ahead.
as someone who's not a language arts teacher, I'm just kind of blown away by how perfect the concept is. The one kid, the two really cool kids. One kid draws, one kid writes. They're in the same school. That the school is the setting for this rivalry. The plot is okay. So as a reader, I know one way to understand a great novel is uh, an appealing character overcomes great odds to achieve a worthwhile end. So these two kids team up to enter a storytelling contest. That's perfect because every school could and probably should have storytelling contests as well. So if the if if part of the purpose of teaching books is to present these wonderful situations and draw the kid readers in into the situation depicted in the book. Wow, this really is a good, well thought out scenario for that.
Okay, now what's important here, and this is a text page that Professor Gore has included. What's important here is that in it, teachers and some of the ELA teachers, well, gee, we have to teach in the minutia of this elements of plot, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So there it is. And in fact, as I said, at one point, Kwame has to help with writing because Jerry doesn't even want to write the minimum. So he gives him fake points. He doesn't want Jerry to do too well when he does actually write a story. But he teaches him about literature in a sort of sly way. And as you're looking at the book, as I said, you do get plot. And you get teachers are supposed to teach something called conventions of print. That means how a book or a writing can be organized, and it can have parenthetical comments, which means comments in the parentheses. And in this one, there are snarky asides, which is why I knew Dr. Gura would love it, because there are side comments in parentheses, which is what it's meant for, where Jerry discusses the fact, for instance, that Kwame always uses these big, high sounding vocabulary words, which Jerry, not being a reader, doesn't recognize. And Kwame discusses, makes side comments about how Jerry thinks pictures are X and X, but you really need to have. So there's parentheticals, there's insider comments, there are bolded things. So conventions of print, elements of plot, character, dialogue, snarkiness, interior monologue, thinking in your head. Well, the whole book is essentially two interior monologues, because both of them are thinking in their head. It's a rivalry. Well, how can I appear to be working with this person, but actually I'm not? But I will, spoiler alert, say they do come together, not as one, but as a team at the end. And I will also, spoiler alert, say that this is a school-wide contest, which I really love. And I actually know a school, Dit Messiah 62 in Brooklyn, that has once had a school-wide Halloween story writing contest. And in this contest, different kids from different grades win. And I will also say, spoiler alert, that believe it or not, these two work together, but they don't win the contest. They get one of the winners, but they're not the top winner. So it works in all. So you, as a teacher, while you're teaching this and the kids are having a ball, guess what? You've been having collegial conversations about literature. You've been reflecting. You've been teaching elements of plot. You've been teaching conventions of print. You've been teaching character study. You've been teaching character traits. You've been teaching interior monologue. You've been teaching reading for detail. You've been teaching visual literacy. And gee, you didn't know it. And if you were the people looking at the elephant, and oh, you've been teaching phonemes and phonics, and you've been teaching fluency, because the kids love to read this thing aloud because they are the voices of those kids, right? If you have that grade, or even if you're me or Dr. Guru, you can voice those kids. And then you've been doing comprehension because, gee, they comprehend it, because who has a rivalry? Well, many of us have what's called in our adulthood friend enemies, which means you're a friend and an enemy, kind of, and then you're working together. And not friends like the series, but friend enemies is a very common thing in adult life as well. So I just think wonderful. Now, what can teachers take to support their students in getting great value from a book? Well, just
Um,
what we've been doing. Go ahead,
yeah,
Dr. Gura.
let me jump in for just a minute. I mean, I put this question in because this book is so juicy, so delicious, so obviously appealing to kids that it's almost too good to be true. But thanks for your assurance that you're covering a great deal of the required curriculum, mandated curriculum in the area of ELA. And without going into detail, I'm going to assume, I mean, I can see it personally, that this, even if you're teaching something else, there's rich material in this book, that would help you teach it. So it's a resounding no. Reading this book and many others like it will not pull you away from what you're required to teach. Boy, I sounded so serious there.
Okay, let me. All right. Well, but the point is, let's say something now. We modeled deliberately. Oh, how to beat K. This is what I was talking about, but this is perfect. Notice something, conventions of print. It looks like a notebook. So that's very accessible because the kids they have either print in terms of print, even if they're not doing a Word doc. Most of the kids still get the marble notebooks that I got as a kid, or they have spiral notebooks, or they get loose leaf. They're given by you composition paper sometimes to write. Now, notice something. How to beat K. Jerry, being a thing, he's doing he's showing different, he's writing, but he's also doing checklists. He's doing conventions of print. He's doing all caps. So even in this, you can teach, as I said, conventions of print, the opposite, note taking, making a list, a procedural, a functional document. By the way, when you do a checklist, behind me, well, I can't show my whole office, but I have literal lists for each day of the things I accomplish because of another role that I have. I have to follow a calendar of the tasks I have to do each day. And I have that at school as well. So that this really, it's organizing, it's sales skills, it's a lot of things. Let's go on.
Um,
I wanted to say
no,
something
no, no.
about how to use this
I got to
model.
point out,
Go ahead.
Rose,
Yeah.
that there's a little bit of deliciousness here because Jerry is engaging in wordplay. He's having fun with the language. Notice that he tags the thesaurus as a dinosaur book, like Stegosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, thesaurus, and he uh, he inserts cinnamon as an inside joke, and
That's
Anton.
another point. Insider humor. By the way, teachers, we do not have to be serious. When I was observed years ago by a professor disconnected, so I won't mention his name. He was disconnected from teaching and had taught, I don't know, 1 or 2 years in Connecticut, about 20 years before he ever became my professor at a college in Brooklyn. He said, don't smile at the students. Don't joke around. They won't take you seriously. I, a smiler by nature and a joker around by nature with kids, said, you don't know what you're talking about, Dr. So-and-so. I didn't care about the grade because I knew this is humor. Get the kids to tell a joke. Get the kids to say how they trick a friend enemy. Get the kids to talk about rivalry. Now,
They want to talk about it.
extending
Give
the
them an opportunity.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, and in this book, I want to mention one other thing. There is gross, clean language, not expletive deleted, but there's kids at that grade level like to talk about gross procedures such as picking one's nose with the B word. And in this, and it's definitely clean, PG, but there's a lot of gross jokes, sort of, that are PG rated. Let the kids talk about that. Let them bring it because the more you bring it to them, you bring them to reading, not to the trunk of the elephant or the pebble on the street, but to learning, not to how to take the test. I never knew a child. All right, they are sort of
Okay.
pleased if their data goes up when you show them their data. But I never knew a child who said, oh my God, I got my 48 choices out of 52. I'm doing better. Versus a kid who says to me, I love this wimpy kid book. And oh, can I get another one? Do you have another book? I never saw the same. There's real joy in the second.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I want to take a second to point out that while this book, as you pointed out to me, really is special and kind of perfect, it's not unique. Yeah, and I'll share with anyone who's listening that my inbox with regularity gets book recommendations and reviews from Dr. Rose, who's continually feeding me suggestions, and finally I picked up on one. So, so beyond this, what else can we do? You've read the book with the kids, they've loved it, and what more can we do with this? Well, for one thing,
Okay, all right. So I
let's
want to
talk about
go
this
ahead.
storyteller because at one time, just not that long ago, storytelling, digital storytelling, but any kind of storytelling was a kind of standard thing that was offered every year. You don't hear about it quite as much as we used to. But so even though I don't, maybe you do, I don't hear as much about these citywide or nationwide storytelling contests. It's not so hard to, to do storytelling with your kids and maybe having a class-wide storytelling contest or a school-wide contest. What do you think, Dr. Rose? This is not Mission Impossible.
Okay, so number one, it certainly is a possibility. And particularly, I've been doing stuff digital now where the kids could record, and it could either be in the auditorium, because we do school-wide contests. There's the soapbox contest. There are school-wide history day contests, etc. Now, with any book, the back of that book, Professor Gura, why don't you hold up, since the camera's on you, the back of that book, and the last page of it suggests a sequel. We are not going to be a spoiler. I won't be a spoiler alert. But there is certainly the possibility, this friend rivalry, although they joined together for the storytelling, always ask a kid,
Yeah.
what's the sequel? What would a sequel be to any book?
So this is
Or a,
a,
a
a
sequel. And there could be a sequel contest. And what's wonderful about doing a sequel to any book or doing a step in the story, in other words, the characters visit the school. Well, this one is a natural. And what do the characters have to say when they come to our class? Or our class goes over to that school and we join in there. And what would we have to say? How could we participate? Now that's done, that's a tradition of writing now, where characters from a series, and also of digital storytelling, with characters from one drop by another series and they interact. And there's no correct answer. Again, what's fabulous about these contests is there isn't a correct one. You do a rubric and maybe you have a vote, and sometimes the one that wins is not really what I would consider the best. But again, life is run and marketing is run in these stories by viewers. So that would be something. Also, yes, art and partnership. I always have kids. I always allow for kids, and in fact, I dignify it. Get somebody I can draw. It's been a thing. I've always seen pictures in my head. That's why I love artists so much and have had several of the people in my life have been major artists, because I think it probably completes. I talk a lot and I see pictures. I encourage kids to do that. And not only because of the social thing, because of seeing that Jerry was shining in class, and luckily Jerry's teachers let him shine, and then he went on to publish. But many Jerrys don't shine in English class because the teacher says, well, where's your words? I don't care about those. Where are the words? Where's the 5 paragraphs? Uh, and
what are we
so art
looking
and
at here, Rose?
partnership.
What
I
are we
want
looking
to
at?
say, I also want to say that the teachers should come into school. You don't even have to do this. Some people may be listening to this and say, okay, I do teach books occasionally. There's a long read on my required curriculum, meaning that you could actually teach a book on the required curriculum. But I can't be bothered with that book, so this has been a waste. Any book, you come in, you're a reader. I bring books with me deliberately to school, books I am reading. And while the class is changing or something, I will take from my desk, and so does Miss Savior and many other teachers I know, teachers who read. I'll say, I just finished, this is a book I did just finish last night. The book is called The Drowning Woman. It's not a book for kids, it's my book, an adult. And I say, well, what do you think this book is about? Well, we got a woman here who's the drowning woman. Well, it should just say she drowned, a woman who drowned. Oh, and just talk. about a little bit with the kids. And then they get a sense that, gee, I don't get paid to teach ELA because I get paid to do so, or I'm, whatever. But I kind of like reading. This one is called The Tenant. Well, I'm an apartment dweller, have been my whole life. I'm a tenant, and I'm head of a tenants committee in my apartment building. Tenant. The kids in my school, Title One, they're all tenants, and in fact, often crowded. And here's a tenant, but this looks, gee, there's a little blood cover. What be going? So little 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Show the kids that you're reading. There's a story I wanted when we finish, when we're close to ending. I want you, let me,
Rose,
Professor
we're
Gura,
we're
tell the
we're
story from my childhood.
we're close to ending. We've been running long. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at some artwork made by your students or students in your school.
Okay. As I'm telling this story and doing this project, I happened to go down the hallway, and there is a white bag. They use white garbage bags in schools now, or at least in the school I work in, and it's got all of these discards, discards of cardboard. Well, being a teacher my whole life in a Title I school, I go, oh, material, clean, packaged discards. I grabbed up the plastic garbage bag and decided to repurpose it. I had tape, keep circulars, and I let me ask kids if they like reading or not, if they would read independently when they're not assigned, or if they don't want to read at all, they only read what they're assigned. And we had a discussion. Most of them didn't. They said they hate reading, and they only read what they are assigned to read. It was delightful and very encouraging for me. And then some of them finally said, well, they do sort of like reading if they can read comic books, or if they can read graphic novels, etc. So a lot of circulars, and I had well, most teachers have it: scissors, scotch tape, glue. That's really all that you need: scissors, scotch tape, glue, this cardboard. And I said, tape it together and make a tower. And it's going to be either an anti-reading tower that you like reading, or you hate reading, because many of them hate it. Let's face, this world is not filled with people who love who have books. And so one student made two of these, and I got this one. And you've pointed out it's not such a terrific work of art, and probably
Well,
it isn't, because
it
I don't know
it
how to
really
teach art.
doesn't it really doesn't matter, Rose, because eh, eh, first of all, there's clearly a blend of text and image, and the student is focusing on how to communicate, which is really the greatest part of literacy. And so collage,
And the student is making a collage is an art counterpart to the reading, and it is actually not alien to reading, because you make pictures in your head. Even Rose, the non-artist, always made pictures of characters in my head and scenarios and settings while I read the book. And so and then you can have the students look at the artifacts from another class. What does this student think about reading?
that's
Well, this
perfect.
student thinks reading is joy and wonder, because I see that's what the student has freedom to read. So the student wants us to be able to read, and G up there are banned books. I'm going to tell you the truth. The circulars that I had were from the library. I had schnurred, picked up lots of free circulars. So you can see here, one by one, proud and brave readers, free reading, kid is reading. And that helps the kids to write. So you can double use it. And what kid wouldn't want to write about another kid's artifact? That's a fact.
Okay, so you were lamenting before that you can't draw. I'll share a personal secret. In the 25th year of my career, I think I worked for the New York City Department of Ed for 31, 32 years. In maybe the 25th year, I was made head of STEM for the school system, but I started out teaching, and I did this for 18 years, teaching middle school visual art. You don't need to be able to draw to make art, certainly not to make art to communicate. So I'm gonna wrap this up now, Rose, by talking about the handouts. I'm giving you 90 seconds, no more, to talk about this. Then we're going to talk about the handouts we're offering free. Go.
Oh, so you want me to talk about this one?
For
All right.
90
So
seconds.
my 90 seconds are going. All right. So Kwame Alexander, one of the co-authors of this book, he also has a nonprofit, and which means that, and when you tune into this webinar, his webinars here, they happen during the school day. You're then going to get a link to this, but he conducts it himself, and it's a literacy pep rally. He gets kids. He happens to be charismatic, theatrical, and a fabulous teacher, educator, and a writer. He gets kids excited. So I think there's one coming up this week on the 19th, but it's throughout the year. So I suggest it costs nothing. I suggest you become part of the one word community, because one word, one action can aggregate, and one word, one classroom disruption can disrupt the system and can make for happier class community collaboration and reading.
Well, I love that I was unaware of this. Thanks for sharing with me. I love the line he puts up there: read with joy, write with power, change the world. How perfect is that? So I'm just going to kind of run through the rest of this. We are offering these free downloads. Dr. Rose often sends, an habitual writer of articles about how to teach and what to teach and how to bring joy to the classroom. So she's got a book review and activity guide, which goes much beyond what we discussed today on this book, J versus K. She has another wonderful article. We're offering disrupt reading skills instruction to read for joy and wonder. How perfect is that? She also talks about the project she just showed, repurposing cardboard discards into student expression reading for the sake of joy and wonder. Those are the two collage towers she just showed you. And for this, Rose, I started a book ages ago on collage as a body of wonderful activities that are doable, no talent, no skill. And so I so love the idea of this podcast that I put together a 9-page handout. So what's in it? I titled it Collage, Easy Student Art to Illustrate Book Study Ideas. And of course, you can take the techniques and use them for other kinds of activities. I call it a teacher's guide handout. Um, what's in there are a lot of perfect articles and videos that I've curated. And also, I just said it before, I was a middle school visual art teacher, a successful one for 18 years. And so I took my failures and burns and learned how to manage an art classroom and did a lot of collage work with my students. So there's a lot of tips and ideas on how to make this easy and wonderful. And if you haven't tried it, teachers, do it. It's a wonderful thing to do. You won't be sorry. And in saying goodbye, Rose, I'll give you the last word. Again, please subscribe to this channel, like this post, leave a comment, and have a great day. And if you wanted to
I don't have time for the anecdote. You want me to have a last word?
go ahead and make it 2 minutes or less. All right.
Okay. Okay. So years ago, when I went to school, I was in elementary school. It was a teacher I did not like. I'll repeat, I never liked her. I still don't like her. But every Friday, she would read from a book, which was not in the curricula. It was a biography. She would never finish the reading. And I would always say to my mother, this is ridiculous. She keeps starting these books and she never finishes them. Let's go to the library and get this book out so I can finish it. My mother would always smile. We even bought some of the books. Years later, I realized that this lady was actually, she wasn't teaching the curriculum. She was classroom disrupting and reading from books that she liked, and she was encouraging me to become a biography reader. So right now, read. Bring your reading into school, excite, engage, book yourself, and book the kids into something that sadly is called a classroom disruption when it is this essence of learning. So see the whole elephant, see the whole park across the street, see the totality of learning, book yourself, read.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks. See you
Thank
next
you.
time, Rose. See you next time, everybody.